Let's begin, though, with Fed Governor Cook suing the president over his attempt to remove her from office. A federal court hearing is slated to begin within the next hour. Our Eamon Jaggers is outside the courthouse in Washington with the preview. Hey, Eamon.
Carl, that's right. We do expect that hearing here at 10 a.m. at the courthouse in Washington. During the course of this morning, though, we've seen dueling filings both from the Federal Reserve and also from the Department of Justice in this case. So remember where we are. Lisa Cook has filed a lawsuit against the president and the Fed saying she does not deserve to be fired and the president doesn't have the authority to do that. What we saw this morning from the Fed was a filing from them essentially throwing up their shoulders and throwing up their hands and saying, look, we're not going to offer any arguments in this case. We're going to attend the hearing, but we're not going to take a position on it. And we wait to see what the court does. The Fed only asks the court for a speedy decision here. So we'll wait and see whether they get what they're looking for this morning. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice also offering its own filing in it. And in that filing, they say the president has broad discretion under the for-cause term of the statute to fire people from the Federal Reserve Board. That's something that's really the centerpiece of the issue here. They're also arguing that Lisa Cook did not respond publicly or privately to their allegations that she'd committed mortgage fraud, and therefore, because of her failure to respond publicly, she is not likely to prevail here. What Lisa Cook wants this morning, guys, is an injunction by the court stopping the effort by the president to fire her while her lawsuit plays out. She's asking for that injunction this morning at 10 o'clock. The president, through the Department of Justice, is arguing that no such injunction is needed here. The court should stand aside and allow the president to move ahead with this firing. Also, just within the past couple of moments, we've gotten a statement from Abby Lowell here, who is Lisa Cook's attorney. Now, he's responding to the additional allegation made by the FHFA last night that there is a third property at issue here in terms of Lisa Cook's personal mortgages. What Abby Lowell says, defending Lisa Cook this morning, is this is an obvious smear campaign aimed at discrediting Governor Cook by a political operative who's taken to social media more than 30 times in the last 2 days and demanded her removal before any review of the facts or evidence. Nothing in these vague, unsubstantiated allegations has any relevance to Governor Cook's role at the Federal Reserve, and they in no way justify her removal from the board. So a fiery statement from Lisa Cook's attorney here as we get set for this hearing coming up in less than an hour. Guys, back over to you.
But, Eamon, the statement from Lowell doesn't directly address the details of this mortgage application or mortgage agreement that she sought to take out in Cambridge?
Right. So this is a third property now at issue that the FHFA is raising. And Abby Lowell's statement here is not addressing that allegation on the merits, simply calling it a smear campaign and an allegation. One of the things that they've leaned on heavily is that these are just allegations. None of them have been proven or adjudicated in any official proceeding. And so how can you fire somebody on the basis of an allegation? If that's the case, then anybody in the administration can allege anything about any member of the Fed, and that gives the president cause to fire. So they're saying that's way too broad. And then secondly, what Governor Cook's filing says in her lawsuit is that even if there was a clerical error here, even if she was guilty of the infractions, which she is not, they say, then that's not enough because it happened in her personal capacity, et cetera. So there's a whole set of tiered defenses here. But in this case, they're just saying what Pulte at the FHFA is saying is just a smear campaign and nothing else.
And, Eamon, when we think about the next steps of this legal battle, it's going to go to, as I understand it, this judge in the district court in Columbia, District of Columbia, Gia Cobb. She was a Biden appointee. She's been skeptical of some of the Trump actions. If she rules for Lisa Cook in this, how long will it take, or what do you think the process will be before it gets to the Supreme Court?
Well, you're going to have to go through a couple levels of appeals before it gets to the Supreme Court. So the first threshold question here this morning is, does Governor Cook get an injunction or a restraining order against the president's effort to fire her? If she does, that's going to put her defense on much more solid ground. If she doesn't, that's going to present a problem for the Federal Reserve. You know, there's been a really unresolved question all week, is like just as basic as, is Lisa Cook considered by the Fed to be a member of the Board of Governors? Is she at work? What the Fed is saying is, in this response to the lawsuit, you know, look, we're throwing up our hands here. We don't have any arguments to make in this case. We just want a speedy resolution. And so, will she be able to retain her office and her access to data? All those questions, sort of depend on that restraining order. That's the first one. Then the question is, does it go to an appeal if the government loses? Then you get to this situation where it would go to the Supreme Court. So you could be looking at certainly months of legal wrangling. But this hearing this morning will sort of set the tone for who's on the defensive and who's on the offensive.
Yeah, Eamon, on that note, I mean, has she had her access denied to the building, to electronically connecting? Do we know whether that has already been rescinded as a result of her firing as of now, prior to potentially the receipt of a TRO?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't believe that she has. I mean, Steve Leisman's done some reporting on this, and what we've been told is that, she's been traveling during this intervening time. So we don't know. We've had cameras staking out the garage there, trying to see if she goes into the building. We don't know if she's even entered the building since this all happened. We'll wait for official statements from Abby Lowell or from her as to whether she intends to go to work. It's late August. A lot of people are on vacation. There's a little bit of wiggle room there. But it is a real fundamental question of whether she has access to data. And I think this hearing today will really set the tone for it, because if there's a restraining order that's put in against the president's effort, that'll give Jay Powell at the Fed some more leeway to say, look, there's been a restraining order, everything's on hold, so we're going to just proceed, pro forma according to regular order here until we're told by the court not to. And so that gives Powell an excuse, really politically and legally, to allow Lisa Cook to continue as a member of the board until there's an adjudication of her lawsuit. If there's no restraining order this morning, then that presents some real challenges for Powell, because he's going to have to decide, does he give her access to the building, does he not? And those decisions will ultimately become public and could, if they go against President Trump, could provoke President Trump's anger.
Yeah, you can imagine how messy this would be if she does have to vacate. The president names a replacement, but then is reinstated if a court ultimately decides the president couldn't do it.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Myron's going to get a Senate hearing on September 4th. So this is all going to get very complex in the week ahead. Eamon, thank you for that. We'll talk to you later this morning, Eamon Javers.